Hi guys, and welcome to part 2 on this bumper corner smart repair video. Now if you haven't seen part 1, click in the top right hand corner at the annotation and that'll take you to part 1, and then you can pop back and watch part 2. So part 1 was all about the actual paintwork stage and how to put your clear down in a way that you could do your clear blend effectively. Part 2 of this video is going to be all about how to denib, flat and polish, and also how to polish out your clear blend in a way that you will not know that you've done a clear blend, and also in a way that it'll last. So jumping straight in, wet flat, I've got some 1500 and some 2000. I've got a little dual density sanding block. I've got a P3000 Trizac, and then we've got the electric polisher. We've got a hard head with the G3 Premium, which is my preferred cutting compound, and we've got a soft head for the 3M Finesse It to finally finish off. So we are taking over exactly where we left off at the last video once this had dried down, and all I've done is literally give this a bake and then put all this stuff in the booth ready so we could start this second part of the video. Now for you guys that haven't got a booth, you could lamp this for about 20 minutes. You probably need to lamp it probably 2-3 times to get around this corner and get around this flat bit, but if you put the heat lamp on for about 20-25 minutes a time, then this would be fully cured. And for you guys who are looking at this as a DIY job to maybe do at home, then I'd recommend leaving this overnight to cure in your garage or in a sheltered area, and then you could do this job the next day. Now as I said, this literally is straight after we shot part 1. So all I've done is get everything in the booth ready after this had baked, and then we literally unmask this, and then we're going to go as if I am doing this job on the day. So first things first, I'm just going to work on this clear blend a little bit. Now I've not got the sanding block, I'm just using the P2000 with just some plain water. I haven't got any soap in it. Personally, I know a lot of people say they like soap, some people do like soap, some people don't like soap, but I don't like putting soap in the water. I just prefer to just use the water itself. So the first stage that we are doing here is we're just taking this P2000 and we're just going to work on this little blend area first. And all we want to do is basically take this blend area back down so it's nice and smooth. So when you've wet flat this and you dry it down like so, what you don't want to see is anything shiny across this blend area, which is why I'm working half on the blend area and half on the old paintwork, just to make sure that as I smooth across this from old to new, there is nothing now that should be shiny. That will mean that your blend area will be nice and smooth, and you should see when you dry it down that it not only will it make it nice and smooth, but it'll also slightly feather it in. So you won't have a clean straight line like it looks like on top there, which is just where the thinners have gone across. It's not where the clear's actually gone all the way up, it's just where the actual thinners have, what's the best way of putting it, reacted with the old paint and just got rid of the scotching marks, and it's just shined everything up, because that's where, you know, those thinners or your blending clear have actually melted the new and old together in one piece. So we really, at this stage, we just want to work on smoothing out where this blend was, so that when we polish it up, obviously we're going to end up with no texture difference in the paintwork from one side to the other. And obviously if there's a texture difference on one side or the other, or there's a texture difference running down this actual blend line, then that'll obviously make the blend line stand out a hell of a lot. So as you can see there, if you just look where I've just flattered that blend quickly, you can see that that's now nicely feathered out, and that's enough. You don't need to go really mad. Just make sure you take that back so it just feathers it out of touch, and that it's nice and smooth, and it'll just help you when you come to polish that everything will blend from one side to the other more effectively, and that's what will give you the seamless and long lasting blend. Now my next stage, this is what I would normally do. I'd just give it a quick little nib where there's any dirt in there, just using that double density block. I use the hard side of the block just so I can just literally block off any little bits of dirt, and it won't leave any indents because I'm just giving it a nice little flat block across. Now for me, normally this is where I would pretty much finish up. I'd just nib out any little bits of dirt that were in any of the paintwork on any of the jobs that I do like this, and then I give it a quick Trizac over the whole area, and then I just give it a quick polish. Now for the guys out there that maybe I'm not saying that you're not as good, but maybe you haven't managed to match the actual appeal of the car, or maybe a DIY guy doing it at home, and at this stage you need to give it a full platinum polish. Then once you've nibbed any little noticeable marks out of it, then you can go over it then by hand all over, nice and light, with a P2000. Now, for the sake of this video, I do actually go over this with the P2000, just so not only can I show the way that I would do it, but the way that maybe if you're doing a little smart repair at home or something like that, or you've done it in your garage, the best way of doing it, because obviously not everyone's got, you know, a big booth like this, not everyone's got the perfect environment to do it in. I understand that, so we've tried to make this video cover all bases as far as the DIY guys go, and also maybe guys that have got a paint shop or are just thinking about starting out a paint shop and can't quite afford a full-fledged booth like this yet. So I am literally now using the same piece of 2000, just giving it a light go over really lightly, just to make sure that, say for instance, this didn't quite match the finish of the car, we can just knock this off a tiny little bit. You don't need to go all the way, just give it a real nice light knock down, just to make sure that you're knocking the top off the peel, or maybe you're getting that extra little bits of dirt out because you've not got a booth like this, and it'll just smooth it down so that when we come to polish it up, you'll end up with that nice even finish across your panel that then, once it's polished, will look really nice and blend into the car's paintwork and existing finish. And if you guys like this video, or you guys like part 1, and you want to be notified in the future of up and coming videos, then click the little bell in the corner, and that'll help you get a notification when a new video gets uploaded, so you don't have to actually go on there and have a look for it. And if you're subscribed, or if you do subscribe, then you will actually, I think around YouTube now, emails out around about 90% of subscribers, so you will get an email notifying you of any new videos as well. So click the subscribe button or click the little bell icon in the corner, so you don't miss out on any future videos, because we have got some more smart repair videos coming up. And after this, I am actually going to put up the little £10 spot repair spray gun review, just so that especially for you DIY guys and you guys that haven't quite got the budget that us full-time painters have, just to see what a little £10 spray gun can actually do. And it's quite funny actually, because the day that I actually did the voiceover on this, I was chatting to the gunman, because he's just done a little $10 spray gun review, and it was quite interesting to see what he thought of his little $10 spray gun review. And I have to say, my little £10 spray gun review, it did actually manage to paint the car, but I have to say my thoughts on my little £10 one were just about the same as what he had on his $10 one. So if you haven't seen his video on that, also pop over and check out his little $10 spray gun review. And as I say, we will have the £10 spray gun review, which is just a little £10 spot repair gun that we picked off Amazon, Amazon UK, and we'll put a link in the description when we do the video, just so you guys can see the spray gun that we actually used, and that it was a little £10 spray gun, and also give you my thoughts on it, of what I thought on it and what I thought on it compared to the guns that I use, and how usable it would be for you guys at home as well. So back to the job in hand, we've just given that a light 2000 all over, and a very light 2000 all over. And the next thing that I'm going to do is just by hand get this 3000 Trizat disc and just go over this blend, just to make sure this blend is super smooth and that it's blended in nicely, and it'll help us polish that blend in. Now that is one of the biggest keys to making sure that when you do a clear blend, that you polish it in properly and you polish it in really well, and making sure that that blend is really smooth and really nice. Because if you leave any sort of texture difference or any sort of like rough bit of peel down that blend or anything like that, it will stand out like a sore thumb. And if you don't Trizat it up and polish it in properly, then eventually that clear blend is going to show. I mean, as far as clear blends go, no matter how good you are at them, eventually, you know, it could be 2 years, 3 years, 5 years, at some point down the line that clear blend will always show. But the trick to making sure it's a long lasting repair is making sure that you do go through all the stages as best you can when you first do the car. The last place that I worked at very much had a logic of do things right and do it once. Now I can't say that they always did do that, but my work philosophy these days is very much do the job right and do it once. Because if you do the job right and do it once, you know, especially in your prep work and your paint work and all that sort of thing, then the chances of you knocking out a job like this that looks absolutely perfect at the end, it's paramount really to getting that job looking right. And the last thing that you really want is to be redoing jobs for silly little mistakes, or something that you tried to cut out 2 minutes worth of time just for the sake of rushing a job. It's just not worth it, because cutting out 2 minutes worth of time is going to cost you probably 2 hours worth of work in the booth or prep work to re-prep the car, remask it, plus the money and everything to rebake it. It's just not worth it. So it's always a good philosophy to double check everything as you do it, and just do your job right and do the job once. And that's my preferred way of doing things. Now we've moved on. Now we've got the G3 Premium, and we've got the I think these are the dry use compounding foams from Forecla. These are my preferred compounding foams for this. They leave a really nice finish. Same with any compound, no matter what you do, you will end up with some slight swirls at the end. Now the G3 Premium, you can use just this compound with the hard head and then use a soft head over it, and that will remove your swirl marks. But personally, for swirl mark removal, I really do like on dark colours the 3M Finesse It. I think it does a really nice job, and it just helps cut that little blend in that little bit extra. So all we've really done is put two tiny little bits of polish on this, and that'll be enough to do this whole bumper corner. There's no need to go absolutely mad with it. It looked at the start like there's a lot of polish on there, but that was just because there was a little bit of water on the actual polishing head where I just softened it up, so it did kind of spread that about a bit. Now, as you'll see when I polish very much like a paint. I try and give a nice overlap as I'm going across, and go over it, all the areas really thoroughly, especially as you can see here, going over the old part of the bumper as well, because you've got this really nicely fresh painted corner that you've now flat and polished. So it's obviously, once that's polished up, that's going to have a real high gloss and be absolutely beaming compared to the rest of the car. So I always try and just blend that polishing out a little bit down that bumper into a bit of the old paintwork, just so it shines that up. So once you've done this, then it's not going to stand out like a sore thumb that this corner has just been freshly painted and polished. So I will just feather that polishing out around that back edge. Another thing I'll do for cleanliness is I'll actually keep the car masked up if it's possible when I'm polishing, and not rebuild the car before I start polishing. I've seen a lot of times people getting it out of the booth, rebuilding the car, and then denibbing and polishing it. My preferred method would be to try and leave as much, even if it's just the edge masking on, get it out of the booth, give it a quick denib and give it a quick polish, and then I'll demask it, clean any excess paste off, and then once I've cleaned any excess paste off and give it that final clean up by hand in all the little edges and all the little grooves and everything, then I'll actually rebuild the car. It just helps keep that polish away from getting behind lights and in gaps that you can't get it out of, so that when you're done, it just leaves you a much nicer, cleaner job at the end of it. Because obviously, as refinishers, at the end of the day, our job is to make sure that we try our best no matter what to make sure that when this car is done, that you can't tell that it's been done. The work that we do once we're finished is supposed to look factory, so that anything like this that we do, we don't want to really smooth this bumper corner out to like a mirror finish, because obviously that'll stand out from the rest of the car and it won't look like factory. Now I get a lot of sort of like, not grief, but a lot of comments on videos like this where we do a clear blend or something like that, oh, you should have taken the whole bumper off, and you shouldn't put a clear blend in a car like this, etc. But what I can say is, I have worked in a factory, and brand spanking new cars come out of the factory with clear blends all over them. It's not something that I particularly agree with. In the ideal world, I would love to take this bumper off, blow in that corner and re-clear the whole bumper, but at the end of the day, the world just isn't like that. Everybody's got a different budget, whether you're trade or private. Every shop's got a different amount of time that you can spend on a car, and I'm not saying that we're clear blending half this bumper because the shop hasn't given me enough time. This particular job's a trade job. The guy wants it in and out as quick as possible because he's got a customer for this car, and at the end of the day, as soon as this car is out of here, this car for him is sold. So we've got a budget and a time limit on this car that's set by the customer and not ourselves, so we're doing the best we can for our customer for what he wants us to do. Now, it's not a case of bodging the car, because any of these jobs done properly will end up perfect and will end up seamless. So at this stage now, we've given this a good go over with the compound. So the first thing that I want to do is go over this really well now and make sure that any of that compound is completely off this freshly painted corner and off this bumper, and make sure it's nicely cleaned up at this stage. And then at this stage we can check to make sure that everything at this stage is compounded up enough. If it's not, go back with a bit of compound if you've missed a little edge or you've missed a little nook and cranny or a little corner or anything like that. And also just check that area where you put your clear blend, because at this stage, even though we haven't actually used the 3M Finesse It, that clear blend should at this stage, if you've done the processes right so far, not show up at all. And as you can see there, everyone knows where that clear blend was, and there is no visible blend there whatsoever. Because this is the key: if you do these jobs right, this clear blend will disappear, and it'll polish out nicely, and it'll polish out easily. There should be no need to try and polish that out 2 or 3 times. Once you've polished that clear blend out once, if you do it right and you've flattened it out right and you've trizapped it and smoothed it properly, then this clear blend will simply just disappear in that first polish. Now, the 3M Finesse It we're using now with the soft foam, again, for some reason this soft foam, when I was wet flatting, I think it got a bit of water on it, which is why this looks a bit OTT. It looks like I put this Finesse It absolutely everywhere, but again, it's just because there was a tiny bit of water on the actual foam head before I started. So again, all we're going to do here is, again, you can see I've just gone that little bit further again with the polish, just to try and further this polishing out the same as we have done with the paintwork, just to make sure that everything blends in nicely into the existing finish. And then with the buffer set, not too high. On these electric buffers, I've found that most of them tend to run at about the same sort of speed on the smaller lightweight buffers, so I normally set mine between a 1 and a 2 on the speed dial, and just give a nice, slow, even, overlapped polishing motion across the bumper. And I always go over it 2 or 3 times, whether it needs it or not, because one thing that I don't want to do is go across and polish it once over and then wipe it off and find out that I've got to put more polish on and do it all again. So I will kind of like work one area at a time in my head, try and section the bumper out in my head and do piece by piece, and I will go over everything 2 or 3 times just to make sure that I've covered all the areas, and if maybe I've missed something on the first pass, I'll catch it on the second pass or the third pass, and it'll just mean that when I'm done, that I can polish this off and be confident before I polish it off that I haven't actually missed anything. Because again, it's a bit like your prep work. If you do it right once, then you save yourself time, you don't have to go over it 2, 3, 4 times. So with the polishing, I will just go over the same area a couple of times, so that when I knock it off, I know that it's fully polished and fully finished. And I would say that in this job, consistency is key. So once you find a way of doing something or a process that works for you, then stick to it, because at the end of the day, the more you do it, the better you're going to get at it, the quicker you'll end up doing it, and the easier it'll become to do. If this is your first time doing this job, you might have had to wet flat this and then dry it off and then be like, oh, I've missed some of it, and then you'll come to compound it and you'll miss some of it, and then you come to polish it and you'll miss some of it. Well, the more you do this kind of work, a bit like spraying, the more that gun's in your hand, the easier it becomes. It becomes, for me, I pick up a spray gun and spray a car more times a day than I actually pick up a pen and write my own name. So for me, picking up a spray gun these days and painting a car just feels effortless. Whereas I know for some guys, you know, watching this, you may think, oh wow, you know, I wish I could paint like that. Just practice, practice, practice. That's the best way I can put it for anybody wanting to learn this trade. Even if you just go and get yourself a little cheap compressor, and say a little scrap panel from the scrapyard or something like that, or buy a little brand new panel. You can get a little brand new Fiesta or a Corsa wing these days for about £30, and use that as your practicing tool. Put a dent in it, fill it, prime it, try and paint it, you know, put a scratch in it, rework the scratch, you know, just have a play and get hands on, because no matter how many videos you watch, no matter how many, you know, how much time you spend in a college room with a tutor or anything like that, nothing will beat hands-on experience in this trade. And regardless of what you think when you watch these videos, every one of us as painters needed to start somewhere, and we've all learnt, not the easy way. Some of us learnt easy ways, some of us learnt hard ways, but at the end of the day we have all learnt through mistakes, and mistakes are the biggest part of learning. I find in life and in any job as well, especially in this trade, because a simple mistake in your prep work can cost you hours and hours and hours in the spray booth. So I hope you guys have liked this video and the information we put in. If you're not subscribed, hit that subscribe button, and don't forget to hit that bell in the corner to be notified of new videos coming soon. So I hope you've liked this little tutorial on this bumper corner smart repair, and I'll see you again soon for the next video.